Good day, Jersey City. I'm Patrick Balaon from Jersey City Public School News. This month, we celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month. Latinos today continue to advance communities across the country as small business owners, veterans, teachers, and public servants, and among many other professions. Hispanic Heritage Month allows us to recognize their achievements and contributions to our national story. In light of this, I wanted to share some information you may or may not know regarding similarities between Spanish and Filipino cultures. As you might have noticed, Filipino culture and customs have a striking resemblance with traditions celebrated by Spanish and Hispanic people. For instance, the Filipino language, Tagalog, contains to some extent Spanish vocabulary, or the many foods that the Filipino and Spanish share, like lechon, chicharron, along with leche flan. Even how some Filipinos often have last names that Spanish people would have as well. Last names like De La Cruz, Reyes, Castro, Garcia, and so on. The similarities between these cultures dates back to the mid-1500s, the start of the Spanish colonial period in the Philippines, which stretched from 1565 to 1898, 333 years of Spanish rule over the Philippines and its islands. All of this started when Portuguese navigator and explorer Ferdinand Magellan was commissioned to venture the transatlantic and Pacific route to Asia, which they landed on the Philippine Islands, otherwise known as the Philippines, in commemoration of the King of Spain, King Philip II, who was ruler at the time, who also gave Magellan permission to go on the expedition, marking the beginning of the Spanish occupation in the Philippines. Further down the line, a decree mandated by Spanish Governor Narcio Claveria y Zaldúa called it the Claveria Decree. The decree was made to establish administrative order to the Philippines naming system by utilizing the Spanish language. This applied to adopting Spanish surnames, indigenous words relating to organic life, art, geography, and so on. According to sources, the Claveria Decree was inconsistently enforced throughout parts of the Philippines, and the results from the decree's publication has varied in many provinces. Some Filipinos who are of Spanish, Chinese, and native descent were able to keep their current surnames. Additionally, some Filipinos rejected the decree and chose surnames that weren't on the list. The article listing 61,000 surnames written in 141 pages is called the Catalogo Alfabético de Apellidos, which translates to Alphabetical Catalog of Surnames. Among those 61,000 names, my last name Balaon was written. Can you believe that? My whole life, I grew up thinking that my last name was native to my culture. Through research for this story, I have a more complete understanding of my own cultural history. The Claveria Decree wasn't the only thing that held Spanish influence. When the Spaniards occupied the Philippines, the Spanish taught Filipinos labor-intensive cooking methods and how to use ingredients they brought with them. This led to Filipinos adopting or adapting many foods that are tied to Spanish cultures. These delicious cuisines consist of, but are not limited to, adobo, empanadas, longanisa and menudo, pandesal, tamales, etc. Now, although these influences stem from places in history where it is not very fond to look back on, there was a time in history, especially in the history of America, where Filipinos and Latinos banded together. Take for instance the Delano grape strike. During the 1900s to the 1930s, Filipinos immigrated to California, Central Valley, which was in high demand for laborers. At the time, America wasn't a very progressive nation or had fair legislations regarding basic necessities and treatment for immigrants from other countries and of other nationalities. It impacted Filipinos as there were many instances where Filipinos faced discrimination and experienced many language barriers. Since there were no labor unions to protect farmers from the existing legislation set for many workers working in the fields, in September of 1965, Filipino labor leader Larry Italiong helped found the Agricultural Workers Organizing Committee. The committee inspired Filipino workers in Delano, California to initiate a strike against grape farm owners. As the strikes went on, Italy Young and other Filipino labor workers encouraged Mexican Americans to join Filipino farm workers to fight for civil rights. This convinced leaders of other unions, such as Dolores Huerta and Cesar Chavez, civil rights leaders who organized strikes for Mexican American farm workers, to strike as one, thus creating the United Farm Workers Union. Whether these events in history were good or bad, positive or negative, it is because of these events that helped mold who we are today. I am still happy to call myself Filipino, to do the things that I do, that I am able to enjoy the great aspects of my culture. It is because of my culture that I can make connections with my friends and have a dynamic that I hold dear to my heart. Stay tuned to Jersey City Public School News for more content to look forward to. That's all I have for today. I am Patrick Balaon with JCETV Best Program for Hispanic Heritage Month.